atheism is confusion, but you can examine the way they think and the way they reason, and you start to see it as a symptom of something larger. You go, well, what is it? And some people just kind of colloquially say, well, it's the rejection of God. And that's true. That's probably a way to frame it. That's probably a simple way to summarize it or give a headline to it. But when we get into the paragraphs of the chapter called Rejection of God, and you examine how people think, well, what's the most common, aside from fallacies, there's a form of a fallacy that's common when we talk to these people. And what I find, at least in my conversations, is that the common mistake or blemish in their thinking ends up being categorical. There's like a categorical problem, that they have a problem properly mapping out categories and subcategories. It starts with the assumption of materialism, for example. The starting assumption that all is matter is already a demonstration of a flawed category system. Then you think about what categories are. Now, it makes sense if you miscategorize things, then the conclusions from that miscategorization just keep building on, almost like an error when you build a house. You start with one fundamental category or error, let's say a measurement, and then you start trying to build on that, and then you get more errors over time. It's like a cumulative. And we look at them, and they're already so far down the line. I mean, that guy was so cooked yesterday. God bless him, he was only 20-something. But it doesn't matter. You look at the Beaver Boy, same thing. He's in his 40s, totally cooked. And it's just too easy for me to say, well, it's just the rejection of God, which is true. It's the rejection of God, which is the spiritual element. The spiritual element, the fogginess, clouds the intellectual element. But even if you just looked at the intellectual for a second, you look at categories. That's the way we piece together knowledge. Knowledge is theory-laden. And if you were to visualize it, you'd have a whole maybe section of main categories. And under those main categories, we craft or isolate subcategories. And the reason Christianity, in particularly orthodoxy, is superior is because our metaphysics has proper categorization. And to look at categories as a mental feature, if those categories are absolute, this is the same argument I use for truth and knowledge and everything else, but it applies to categories. The framework of a mind, the framework of a perfect mind, would ground universals, particulars, logic, math, meaning, language, mind, information, and it would all be bound and based in something unchanging and perfect, a being, a mind. And so because Christians already assume this, even heterodox might get on board quite quickly with this notion that all is grounded in the mind of God. And when it comes to knowledge and categories and making sense of the world out there, the better we properly categorize things, the better or higher resolution we're going to come to descriptions. But if you don't accept this, you have to use arbitrary categories. And that's what we see. So when we're talking with these people and we're just like, our mind is blown. My mind was blown yesterday at how ridiculous his defense of evolution was. My mind was blown when I saw Beaver Boy debating that other guy. And of course, it's probably proper and right to say this is a spiritual issue, and it is. But at least to the extent we can examine the mental problem, the intellectual problem, I would say that it is, in many cases, a problem of properly categorizing things. Why? How could you say something's properly categorized if it's not absolutely grounded in something? You know what I mean? It makes sense. If there is no ultimacy to how to properly examine truth, come to truth, properly categorize things, and understand and speak about things, then you can move the categories all around. You can just pick up one category like a block and put it down and put that, and go over here in the corner. It's like a Montessori school. And that's actually what you see in their debates, They think they can talk about knowledge in philosophy, epistemology, which is a branch of your worldview. They think they can talk about that stuff without talking about metaphysics or assuming something about metaphysics. They think they can come to the conclusion that God doesn't exist or the position that God doesn't exist without assuming a whole slew of other things that aren't based in that epistemic claim. And they're just stuck in it, It's just they're just stuck in the muck. And they're doing something when they debate or they argue. They're doing something that ultimately, from their own view, they have no reason to do, first of all. They don't have a reason to debate. There's no reason to debate. There's no reason to come to truth. There's no reason why we should hold a true belief versus a false belief from an atheist view. It's confusing. It's contradictory. It's self-refuting. It's useless. It's mindless. It's purposeless. They'll agree. And then we ask, well, why do you do it? Why do you have a channel? Why do you debate people? Why do you pester Christians? Why do you do with any of this? Well, because it's fun. That's really all it comes down to when you could skip all these other questions. Well, what's your epistemology? What's your standard for truth? Yeah, fine. But you could do all that, but you could skip all that and you just ask simply, why are you here? This might come up in my debate in November, by the way. You should get tickets if you didn't sort that out yet. Go over to Modern Day Debate. I think this is going to come up in my debate against Peterson because, the argument is ultimately, does naturalism make more sense of reality than theism? And no, it doesn't. Because to make sense of reality is to make sense of the categories that allow you to make sense of the material world. And if you can't make sense of the things you're using to make sense of the material world, why would your view make any sense at all? It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. And I'll show you a comment that it's so insane, but I'm not surprised. I'm never surprised by these comments. Where is it? It's just, where is it? Oh, this guy, dude, this is just so insane. And again, I get frustrated because they never call in. They just stay safe. They write their essays, right? They write their essays in the chat, in the comments. They pester in the chat, and then I go, here's the link. Here, I'll read a statement right here from this guy. He says, I use the word mind to describe chemical reactions occurring in the brain. If there is something beyond that does not include the physical brain, then you would have the burden of proof for claiming there is something beyond the brain. They actually type these things out. They're in the performance against what they're saying. They're very active doing so. They're conveying meaning. They're conveying descriptions. They're conveying propositions. They're conveying that they're using the laws of logic. And they're stringing together utterances with their thumbs at me, at you. And they don't understand. If the mind is merely the thing you're describing chemical reactions, then you need more chemical reactions to describe that chemical reaction, and so on. They don't understand the consequences. But maybe, in addition to the spiritual issue, the failure to know the consequences. Why? Well, once you understand the consequences of a broken view, which is atheism, the alternative is theism, generally, and then more rigorously, Christianity, of course. And then what happens, you guys? Well, then you got to be responsible. Then Beaver Boy has to clean up his room. Then all of a sudden you might have some obligation. That suddenly you have some moral weight to your existence. Suddenly you're held to account. No, we can't have that. Let's stick to confusion. Let's stick to the confusion. Yeah, let's go with that. And what's annoying is you refute these guys, and it's one book after another. All I could do is ask them to call in, but you know what I get? I get this. I get books. That's all I get. Books from these people. Ankle biting in the chat, books in the comments. I also ask this person in the comment, which set of chemical reactions is the mind and which is not the mind? He doesn't answer. And then he says, I never said chemical reaction is the mind. This is why you waste your time with these people. He says, I use the word mind to describe chemical reaction. I never said chemical reaction is the mind. There's no, just stop. Just don't even interact. It's like demons who don't care. They're just saying men can have babies, men can have babies. 1 + 1 = pineapple. It might as well be fart sounds coming out of their mouth, honestly. And here I am, too charitable. Oh, whoa, he wrote something. Let me read it and understand him. I'm sure we have one in the chat. I'm sure we have one. Do we? I'm just assuming we do. Do you have any in the chat? You know what it's like? You know those singing cockroaches or whatever? Screaming that's what it reminds me of. It's some chemical reactions are better. Not even better, truer. I can't call in. I'm writing you a book. Exactly. So anyway, the reason atheism leads to confusion, or atheism is confusion, is because there is no unifying truth at all. There's no unifying truth. There's nothing that grounds, stabilizes, or provides any level of absoluteness, ultimacy, objectivity. Nothing. Nothing. There's nothing. They're like, well, can I just use my senses? No. You can't. Your senses don't provide you with the veracity of your evaluation of the senses. Your senses don't give you the veracity of your evaluation. So, nope. What? So the question comes down to, when it comes down to it comes down to Pontius Pilate. And this is what's so beautiful about Christianity, is that the very question, what is truth, posed to Christ and the people around, is really the essence of atheism. The question itself is malformed. It perfectly embodies the view that rejects God. The question itself shows you what is truth, is where they're asking from. What? An object, a description, a set of propositions, an accumulation of data. What? What is truth? And some people run with that, and they become, sort of like pagans, monists. They look at the world. It's the aggregate of all things, or something like this. That which comports to reality. This is all what is truth. Well, no. The confusion, the reason atheism is confusing, is because there is no what that can be truth. Whats are particulars. Truth would need to transcend universals and particulars. Truth would need, as an ontology, need to transcend the one and the many. The problem of the one and the many. It would have to be not only multiplicity, but also unity. It's a who. It's a being. There's no escaping this. Any alternative is going to reduce to some sort of nominal problem. It's going to reduce to some sort of a group of people trying to build up like what they think is true from the bottom up, and then it topples and they restart, right? Or it's going to be a chemical reaction. I've debated people that with a serious face said that truth is a chemical in the mind. Really? That's weird. So truth's a particular? If truth is a chemical in the mind, then that statement is also just a particular, and it's not universal. That's how committed these people are to their own insanity, their own demise. They love it. Apparently, they love it. So I'm not confused why atheism leads to this insanity. I'm not confused why atheism leads to spiritual prelest. I'm not confused why atheism leads to this mangled worldview where all the parts don't fit together. I'm not confused at all. It makes perfect sense that if you reject God, your knowledge system is going to fall apart. It's going to be a puzzle that doesn't piece together. It's impossible. It's not just that they don't know how to piece it together. They don't even have the puzzle. They're not even the right pieces, and they're trying to like smush them together, and they're trying to carve out a section of the puzzle and smush it in so it fits. Oh, a man can have a baby. It's actually horrifying. And I look out in the world, and I look at these clips of people, and I look at what's going on in culture, and I look at what's going on, the degeneracy and the confusion and the broken-mindedness and the idiocy. What's crazy is that Idiocracy, the movie, that's totally consistent with secular thinking. The whole thing. The whole reduction of society becoming mindless consumer drones is a symptom of secularism, atheism. Because what else would there be other than matter? What else would you do other than pursue your desires? What else would you do other than see yourself as a mere biological reaction that's seeking good feelings? What else would there be in society than what we see today? I'm not confused about this.